This is a true crime story. A tragic and unfortunate loss. One that no one would wish for an enemy.
I've actually called a couple times to do wellness check, and according to the news and according to reporters, that a neighbor called because they saw flies on the air conditioner and the smell of death was in the air. I spent hours in the courtroom. I spent thousands of dollars trying just to get access to them. I got nothing other than these 4 beautiful kids are gone. How long has it been since my kids have been gone?
The Mechanicville deaths were a premeditated familicide suicide. It was orchestrated primarily by Amy Steadman, 64, motivated by a catastrophic fear of losing control over her daughter and grandchildren to an incoming custody transfer, likely with the passive knowledge, emotional collapse, or silent consent of her daughter Sarah Myers. The evidence, timeline, and behavioral pattern strongly suggest this was not impulsive. It was planned. Viewer discretion is advised. Brady Harmon, a father in Salt Lake City, Utah, was counting down the days. July 1, that was the date. The date his children were finally coming to him for 60 days, just 60 days, after 6.5 years of fighting. After 6.5 years of lawyers and court filings and blocked phone calls and a family court system that kept saying, "Be patient." He had made plans. Utah's national parks, camping trips, family members the children had never met. He was going to take a real photograph. His sister had even drawn a composite image, his Utah family, his New York children, all together in one frame. A drawing. Because a real photograph didn't exist yet, because he hadn't been allowed to take one. He was going to fix that on July 1. That photograph will never be taken. Brady Harmon spoke to the Times-Union, and the words he said, "You will not forget them. I went from 'I'm seeing my kids' to 'I'll never see my kids again.' Hope to hell, things happen, but nothing like this." And then the line that stopped the internet: he wants to bury his children in Utah, far from Mechanicville, far from New York, far from, I want them as far away as possible from their mother. That is not the statement of a man performing grief for cameras. That is the statement of a man who has been carrying something for 6.5 years, and finally said it out loud. There is rage in those words, and beneath the rage, there is devastation. 6 people, 4 of them were children. The youngest were twins, 10 years old. They were found in an apartment in a small city north of Albany, New York. The city is called Mechanicville. It's the kind of place where neighbors notice when you're gone. And that is exactly what happened here. A neighbor hadn't seen the family in days, maybe a week, maybe more. She called police. And when officers entered that apartment on Tuesday, June 23, 2026, what they found was so disturbing. The bodies could not be immediately identified. That detail alone, sit with that for a moment. The apartment belonged to Amy Steadman, 64 years old. She was a grandmother. Her daughter, Sarah Myers, 44, also lived in the same housing complex. Different unit, same building, but on that Tuesday evening, all 6 of them were inside Steadman's apartment. Amy, Sarah, and 4 children: Harper Harmon, 13 years old, Hudson Harmon, 11, and the twins Gavin and Gracelynn Harmon, both 10, all dead. The bodies, police said, had been there for an extended period of time, extended enough that making identification at the scene was difficult. The autopsies were conducted the next day, Wednesday. That's how they finally knew their names. What detectives found inside that apartment would frame everything. Numerous prescription medications, over-the-counter medications, scattered, a handwritten note, and then buried inside one child's autopsy report, fatal sharp force injuries, a stab wound on a child. Police Chief William Rabbit stood before cameras on Thursday, June 25. He chose his words carefully. There is recovered evidence inside the apartment to indicate intentional poisoning, he paused, including numerous prescription and over-the-counter medications. Then the words that changed everything.
There is recovered evidence inside the apartment to indicate intentional poisoning, to include numerous prescription and over-the-counter medications. Until we get the cause and manner certified. We can't speculate on the involvement of all persons.
Evidence recovered during the investigation, including a handwritten note and other circumstantial evidence, strongly suggests that Amy Steadman was involved in the deaths. The grandmother, suspected of killing them all. To understand what happened in that apartment, you have to understand what was happening around it. For 6 years, a father named Brady Harmon had been fighting to see his children. He lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. His children lived in Mechanicville, New York. He hadn't seen them in person since November 2019. 6 years. Brady and Sarah Myers had married in December 2015. They separated in November 2019. He formally filed for divorce in March 2020. The divorce wasn't finalized until April 14, 2026. 6 years. And for those 6 years, every attempt Brady made to reach his children was blocked. Court orders for video calls, ignored, custody hearings dragged out, legal fees mounting. He kept paying $500 a week in child support every week, even when he couldn't see them. He did everything his lawyers could do, everything. Then something changed. In April 2026, just 2 months before the bodies were found, a Utah judge finally ruled. District Court Judge Coral Sanchez granted Brady Harmon 2 continuous months of custody. Every summer, beginning summer 2026, the children were scheduled to arrive in Utah on July 1. The court gave him rights, twice-weekly FaceTime calls, summer custody from July through September, holidays, birthdays, he got almost none of it. Sarah Myers found ways around every single order. There was always something that came up, Brady said. She would find a way out of it. Eventually, he had to hire a second lawyer, just to enforce what the first lawyer had already won. When he was permitted a FaceTime call, he got 15 minutes, with Myers in the room, watching, listening, and yet in those 15 minutes he held onto his children. Gavin would show him things he'd built. Gracelynn and Harper would hold up drawings they'd made for him. Drawings. For a father they could only see through a phone screen. For a father they had been told for years was someone to fear. The last time Brady spoke to his children was June 7, a FaceTime call. A few days later he tried again. Myers told him the children were sick. She didn't let them come to the phone. He kept trying. No answer, so he did what any parent would do. He called Mechanicville Police. He asked for a welfare check. June 13. Officers went to the apartment. They could hear sounds inside. No one came to the door. They told Brady there was nothing more they could do. He called again. June 16, June 17, June 19. 4 welfare checks, 4. Each time sounds, maybe a TV, maybe a neighbor. Maybe no one came to the door, and each time the police left. What detectives would later determine is that by June 9 or 10 at the latest, everyone in that apartment was likely already dead. The sounds the officers heard, a television running in an apartment full of bodies. While Brady was calling police, he was also calling his lawyer. On June 2, 3 weeks before the bodies were found, he filed a motion to enforce the parenting plan. He listed Myers' violations, failed to provide medical records, dental records, psychological records, school records, gave an inaccurate address for the children, blocked court-ordered phone calls, and the court agreed to act. Myers was ordered to appear in Utah court on June 29. To answer for all of it, she never made it. She was already dead. But here is the detail that cuts the deepest. That court date, June 29, was 6 days after the bodies were discovered. 6 days. The court was finally going to hold her accountable, and someone made sure that never happened. Police say the evidence points to Amy Steadman, 64 years old, diabetic, retired, slow walking, the kind of woman who would drive a neighbor to work, the kind of woman whose grandchildren called other people Nana, the kind of woman who, in March 2022, shared her daughter's GoFundMe on Facebook titled, "Help Get a Domestic Violence Lawyer, Save My Kids." The kind of woman who had, by every account, made those 4 children her entire world. Sources close to the investigation told News Channel 13, Steadman had become resentful that Brady Harmon was about to take those children away for the summer, the first summer, after 6.5 years. And Brady Harmon himself, in a 1.5-hour phone interview with Spectrum News 1, said it plainly. It's my speculation they did that together. And all because they were going to spend 60 days with me. 60 days in 6.5 years. I finally get 60 days, and I get this thrown in my face. Inside Amy Steadman's apartment, police found a handwritten note. Chief Rabbit won't reveal the contents. He won't confirm the author. But he said this, it strongly suggests Amy Steadman was involved in the deaths. And one of those children did not die from poison. One of them was stabbed. Police won't say which child. A grandmother, a note, a knife, and 4 children who just wanted to meet their father's family. I want to stop here, because this is the part of the story that most true crime coverage won't give you. They'll give you the facts, the timeline, the suspects, but they won't give you this. What happened to those 4 children in Mechanicville was not simply a crime. It was the final consequence of a system that was warned, again and again and again. 4 welfare checks, each one dismissed. A contempt filing ignored until too late. CPS called to that home multiple times. Records never shared with the father. Children pulled out of school entirely. Homeschooled. No teacher. No counselor. No mandatory reporter. No one who was legally required to notice. These children were invisible to every system meant to protect them. And Brady Harmon saw it coming. His family in Utah had been worried during the divorce itself that Myers might do something to prevent him from ever seeing his children. I just wish there was someone else who could have seen what we saw, Brady said, to prevent this from happening. No one did. 5 days away. Brady Harmon was counting down the days. He was going to introduce his children to the family they'd never met, to a life they'd never known. He was going to take a real photograph. What detectives would piece together next suggested that someone else knew that countdown too, and had decided it would never reach 0. Police found a handwritten note inside Steadman's apartment. They won't reveal the contents, not yet. They won't confirm the author, not yet. But Chief Rabbit said this. It strongly suggests Amy Steadman was involved. A woman who, by all accounts, loved those children. A neighbor said they called her Nana. Nana. Amy was one of my best friends, that neighbor said, through tears. Her grandchildren called me Nana, so that's hitting even harder. Another neighbor described Steadman as diabetic, slow-walking, retired. Someone who would drive a neighbor to work, friendly, known. The children were only seen outside when she was watching them, not their mother. Grandmother, always the grandmother. In March 2022, 4 years ago, Amy Steadman shared something on Facebook. A GoFundMe, created by Sarah Myers. The title, Help Get a Domestic Violence Lawyer Save My Kids. It has since been deleted, but the receipts remain. Myers claimed she was a survivor of domestic violence, that Brady Harmon had been abusive, that she needed money to fight him in court. Brady Harmon denied it completely. I treat women with respect, he said. I would never do anything like that. The divorce papers themselves list no domestic violence. The grounds, irreconcilable differences. There was no alimony order, no protective order cited, but there's something else Brady told reporters. On the night they formally separated, November 7, 2019, he says Sarah Myers stabbed him in the face with a medicine dropper, 3 inches from his right eye. He called police. When officers arrived, she told them he was the aggressor, and they believed her. If you know someone going through a custody battle right now, a parent being blocked, children being isolated, visits being canceled, share this video with them. Not because it's content, because it might be the thing that makes someone act before the welfare check. If this story hit you, the subscribe button is right there, because we don't do clickbait here, we do truth, and truth like this deserves a witness. For 6 years, those 4 children grew up inside a world shaped by that conflict. They were homeschooled, not enrolled anywhere. No teachers, no school counselors, no mandatory reporters. The only adults in their orbit were their mother and their grandmother. Child Protective Services was called to their home multiple times. Brady Harmon didn't know why. Myers never shared the documents. CPS declined to comment. But those children, Harper was 13, old enough to know something was wrong. Hudson was 11, old enough to feel the tension. The twins, Gavin and Gracelynn, had never met their father, not once since they were 4 years old. They knew his name from court documents, from whatever their mother told them. Brady Harmon said Myers had spent years telling them how horrible he was. He'll never get to let them know him for themselves. Brady Harmon was in Utah when the call came. Mechanicville Police, June 23. There is no prepping for that whatsoever, he said. He had been planning their summer, a real photograph, family they'd never met. I went from I'm seeing my kids to I'll never see my kids again. He was supposed to fly to New York on June 30. 6 days later, 6 days. I went through everything I could, everything my lawyers could do, everything. I just never thought that someone would go and do this. You get down to almost the finish line, just absolutely cut your legs out from underneath you, and the only thing left to do is crawl across the finish line. To bring the remains home, here is where the evidence leads. This is what we know with reasonable certainty. 1. The children were days away from leaving for Utah, a first in their lives. 2. The divorce was finalized on April 14, 2026. Sarah Myers was served with the papers on June 12. 12 days before the bodies were found. 12 days. 3. A GoFundMe created this June just before the death described Myers as urgently needing funds for a custody legal battle in Utah. She was actively trying to stop the transfer. 4. The note is in Amy Steadman's apartment. Police say it points to Amy Steadman. She is the prime suspect. 5. One child was stabbed. The others appear to have been poisoned with medications. 6. All 6 bodies were found in Steadman's unit, not Myers' apartment next door. This matters. This means the family gathered there. Someone invited them or someone brought them. This is what the evidence, the timeline, and the behavioral pattern most strongly suggest. Amy Steadman planned this. Not in a rage, not in a moment, in a decision. A grandmother who had spent years watching her daughter fight for those children, who had promoted fundraisers, shared posts, defended Sarah against Brady, who had become, by every account, the central gravitational force in those children's lives. The children didn't play outside unless she was watching. Neighbors barely saw Sarah. Steadman was the anchor, and when the court said, the children go to Utah in 5 days, something broke. The most probable scenario, Steadman could not accept a world where those children left, where the life they'd built, isolated, homeschooled, wholly controlled, was interrupted by a court order, by a father they'd been taught to fear. She may have believed she was protecting them, that what she was doing was mercy. That is the most dangerous kind of killer, not the one who hates, the one who loves without boundaries, the one who decides that if she cannot have them, no one can. Brady Harmon himself said it directly. I did not believe Steadman acted without Myers' knowledge. Whether Sarah Myers knew, whether she consented, collapsed into it, or was herself a victim of the woman she depended on. That question may never be fully answered because she is gone and the note is sealed. A neighbor placed flowers at the door. Children's bicycles sat outside the apartment where Sarah and the children lived. A teddy bear near the doorway. Mechanicville held a vigil. And somewhere in Salt Lake City, Utah, a father is planning 4 funerals for children he hadn't seen since they were 4, 6, 7, and 8 years old. He fought every legal battle, paid every week, counted every day. He made it to the finish line, just not the one he was running toward. This case raises questions that will outlast its headlines. Why were these children homeschooled in apparent isolation for years? Why did Saratoga County Child Protective Services visit multiple times, and what did they find? Why was a 6-year custody battle not flagged as a potential safety concern? Courts decide custody, but no one was watching the children. No teacher, no counselor, no mandatory reporter. Just a mother and a grandmother, in a small apartment, in a close-knit city where neighbors noticed when they were gone, but not before it was too late. We in the true crime space, all of us who follow these cases, we talk a lot about the killers, the evidence, the motives, the profiles. But let's talk today about the pattern, because this case follows a pattern. It follows the pattern of children who are isolated, homeschooled away from mandatory reporters, kept from the other parent, surrounded by adults whose love has curdled into possession. It follows the pattern of custody battles weaponized by one side until the children become objects of control rather than human beings with their own lives. It follows the pattern of courts moving slowly while danger moves fast. And it follows, most painfully, the pattern of a father who did everything right. He paid every dollar. He filed every motion. He hired a second lawyer. He called police 4 times in 1 week. And he still lost his children, not because the system didn't know, because the system didn't act. If you are watching this and you know a family like this one, a family where one parent has cut the children off from the other entirely, where the children don't go to school, where they're rarely seen outside alone, where the controlling adult orbits them like a planet with no escape velocity, listen to me. You are a mandatory reporter, not legally perhaps, but morally. The neighbor who finally made that welfare check on June 23. She saved us from never knowing what happened at all. But she called 2 weeks after the last known contact. 2 weeks. If you sense something is wrong with a child you know, call. Don't wait until you haven't seen them in 2 weeks. Call when something feels off. Call when the curtains stop moving. Call when the FaceTime visits suddenly stop. Because once you find out for certain what was happening, it is already too late to matter to those children. Harper was 13. Hudson was 11. Gavin and Gracelynn were 10. They never got to meet their father's new family. They never got to go camping in Utah. They never got to take that photograph. They were cheated. Brady Harmon said it himself. They got cheated. We got cheated. And it's just not fair. Brady Harmon has buried his children in Utah, far from Mechanicville, far from the apartment on Harris Avenue, far from the life they were trapped inside. He said, "I want them as far away as possible from their mother." Some people heard that and flinched, but I heard it differently. I heard a man who spent 6.5 years trying to give his children more world, more people, more park visits, more photographs, and now the only thing he can give them is distance from the place that took them and proximity to him. He promised something in one of his final interviews. "I miss and I love my kids," he said. "I will always carry them with me, and I will never let them go." Harper, Hudson. Gavin, Gracelynn, you deserved that summer. For the true crime community, the Mechanicville case shows a checklist of compounding red flags that individually might seem manageable, but together form the anatomy of a preventable catastrophe. Red circle red flag: 1. Child isolation. Children removed from school and homeschooled with no outside oversight. No mandatory reporters in their orbit. Red circle red flag 2. Parental alienation in practice. Court-ordered FaceTime calls blocked or supervised. Children coached to fear the other parent. Father received 15-minute monitored calls for years. Red circle red flag 3. Repeated court violations without consequence. Myers violated the parenting plan in documented ways. Brady filed contempt motions. Court dates were set. Penalties threatened: up to $1,000 fine, 30 days jail. Nothing happened fast enough. Red circle red flag 4. Welfare checks dismissed on insufficient grounds. 4 welfare checks in 7 days, June 13, 16, 17, 19. Officers heard sounds. No visual confirmation. No forced entry. Department protocol was technically followed. The children were likely already dead by June 13. Red flag 5. CPS visits with no follow-through. Visible to father, CPS called to the home multiple times. Brady Harmon wasn't informed. Myers never shared the records. The department declined to comment. Red circle red flag 6. Custody transfer as a trigger event. Research on familicide consistently shows that loss of control, especially a court-mandated change in custody or access, is one of the highest risk trigger points for violence. The transfer date was July 1. The family was likely dead by June 10. The trigger pulled approximately 2 weeks before anyone noticed. Brady Harmon said the system needs to be corrected for separations where children are involved.
I feel the two monsters that are responsible are the ones that took them from me. All because you don't want them to spend 60 days with their dad to see he's not a monster. The lies you've been feeding him are completely fake. There should be additional checks to be able to check the mental stability of everyone involved in their divorce, because maybe this wouldn't happen.
He's right. And the only way that conversation happens louder is if more people hear it. So if this video made you feel something, anger, grief, recognition, hit share. Send it to someone who needs to hear this. A parent, a friend, a family law attorney, anyone who thinks the courts always get it right in time. And if you're new here, this is what we do. We don't read articles. We uncover what the headlines leave behind. Subscribe, because the next story is already happening to someone who hasn't been found yet.